This is Punk Rock and Politics, and today is June 13th, 2017, and this is episode number 26. Let's do this.
These days are strange, it's true.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
If you think that punk rock doesn't mix with politics, you're wrong.
And the idea that Labour can go from the position Jeremy Corbyn strikes to victory is absolutely ludicrous.
Welcome to Punk Rock and Politics. Today we'll be talking to singer-songwriter and fellow podcast host Bruce Harris about his podcast called FirstAndMonday, the internet's effect on social relationships, and the current police brutality epidemic. Then on Open Mic's Last Call, we'll talk about the epic failure of Theresa May and the UK snap elections. Oh snap! So let's get to the political mosh pit. But first, here's the news of the week.
Here's what's making news.
Do you have any doubt that the Russian government was behind the intrusions in the DNC and the DCCC systems and the subsequent leaks of that information?
No doubt.
Do you have any doubt that the Russian government was behind the cyber intrusion into state voter files?
No.
Do you have any doubt that officials of the Russian government were fully aware of these activities?
No doubt.
Are you confident that no votes cast in the 2016 presidential election were altered?
I'm confident. By the time when I left as director, I'd seen no indication of that whatsoever.
That was former FBI Director James Comey testifying to a Senate committee and gave no bombshell revelations like the left was hoping. But he did add fuel to the fire for both sides. If you're liberal, you heard possible obstruction of justice for the president, and if you're conservative, you heard that Russia did not hack the 2016 election and that the FBI is not investigating Trump. Their only investigation into the Trump team and Russian connection is their investigation into General Michael Flynn's connection to the Russians. So basically, Comey's testimony will only further divide the two political sides. The UK had their snap election and Theresa May suffered major losses.
As we ran this campaign, we set out to consider the issues that are the key priorities for the British people. Getting the Brexit deal right, ensuring that we both identify and show how we can address the big challenges facing our country, doing what is in the national interest. That is always what I have tried to do in my time as a Member of Parliament. And my resolve to do that is the same this morning as it always has been.
Meanwhile, Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party outperformed expectations.
Theresa May called this general election in her party's interests, not in the interests of our country. She thought that with the backing of the billionaires and the corporate elite, she could take your vote for granted. But she underestimated the Labour Party, and more importantly, she underestimated you. Now, the Prime Minister has no authority, and the Conservatives have no mandate to privatise and cut our NHS, cut school funding, no mandate to cut a single police officer, and she certainly does not have a mandate to cut pensioners' winter fuel allowance or take free school meals away from a single child. Nor do they have a mandate for their race-to-the-bottom Brexit, instead of the jobs-first Brexit backed by Labour.
Now, Theresa May will have to form a coalition government with the extreme right-wing DUP and deal with a hung parliament. In political activist news, the People's Summit concluded after a 3-day event for progressives trying to change the Democratic Party from the inside. Some of the speakers included Naomi Klein, Sean King, and of course, Bernie Sanders. And here's a clip of Sanders' speech from the event.
How did it come about that Donald Trump, the most unpopular presidential candidate in the modern history of our country, won the election? And my answer is that Trump didn't win the election. The Democratic Party lost the election.
President Trump's revised travel ban is blocked yet again by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The travel ban, if implemented, would have stopped all travel from 6 primarily Muslim countries. The executive order was struck down on the fact that Trump has previously stated that he wanted to ban all Muslims. And to kick off President Trump's first full cabinet meeting, all of his cabinet members sat around and kissed his gold ring. But don't worry, this totally wasn't scripted.
Mr. President, I'm privileged to be here, deeply honored, and I want to thank you for keeping your commitment to the American workers.
President, what an incredible honor it is to lead the Department of Health and Human Services at this pivotal time under your leadership. I can't thank you enough for the privilege that you've given me and the leadership that you've shown.
On behalf of the entire senior staff around you, Mr. President, we thank you for the opportunity and the blessing that you've given us to serve your agenda and the American people, and we're continuing to work very hard every day to accomplish those goals.
It's been a great honor to work with you. Thank you for your strong support of HUD and for all others around this table that I've worked with.
And on this day in rock history, June 13th, 1978, the punk band The Cramps and The Mutants played an iconic show at a mental hospital in Napa, California. And thankfully, there is video of that show, and it's definitely worth a watch. Go check it out on YouTube. And that's the news of the week. Bruce Harris is a singer, songwriter, as well as a podcast host for the website FirstAndMonday.com. Bruce is currently located in Florida, but he's constantly collaborating with musicians all over the world, and he creates music from rock to hip-hop. Today we'll be featuring some of his collaborations, and these songs wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the internet, because Bruce is an advocate on the use of the internet and social media as a tool to create communities and form bonds with people all over the world. Whether it's in his personal life, his podcast, or music, he utilizes the internet as a source for creativity, personal fulfillment, and to entertain others. I had the pleasure to talk with Bruce, but before we get to the interview, let's check out one of his songs. Here's Satellite Saints by Bruce Harris.
Saints coming.
And that was Satellite Saints by Bruce Harris. And we have Bruce with us. Hey, what's up, Bruce? How's it going?
It's going very well. Michael, how are you out there on the West Coast?
I'm good. It's nice and sunny, like always. And so Bruce is a musician and a podcast host, and he hosts the FirstAndMonday podcast, right?
Yes, sir. FirstAndMonday.com is a website I helped found a couple years ago. Started with some friends that I actually met online, some folks I never even knew before, but we decided to go into business together, and here we are about 4 years later.
Awesome. Nice. And you just finished your 100th episode, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a pretty momentous occasion. When we got to about 100 episodes of the podcast, and you know how much work goes into doing one of these. It's not just the on-air time, it's the editing. And the biggest pain in the ass is trying to line up interviews, all the time you spend, swapping emails and all that. So yeah, getting to 100 was a big deal. And I sort of try to get somebody under my wing to sort of take my place as the host. So I've got a dude named Todd Roberts coming up, and he's done 4 or 5 episodes so far, and he's doing a real good job.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, that's so true. When I first started, I started the beginning of the year, very end. I mean, I've wanted to do this forever, but I finally just was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. So I did it, and I was like, oh, it's as easy as going to the store and buying a mic, right? No. No way. So how many hours, like I was trying to think about it, how many hours do you put into an average an average episode? Contacting the person, recording it, editing it, promoting it, everything. How much time do you think you put in?
It's hard to estimate. I mean, it really depends. Sometimes you get lucky and you hit it right off. Sometimes it's a friend of yours. It just falls into your lap, and it takes very little time at all. Basically, how this whole podcast happened, it was just an offshoot of the main website, First of Monday, which, like I said, I met some guys online. We decided we wanted to have a one-stop shop for all things internet, because everybody that's involved in our website works in front of a computer all day in an office, and we have a bunch of free time on our hands to, fuck off on the internet. And we realized we were hitting up like 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 different websites during the day to quell our thirst for our various interests. Right. We decided, what if we created one website where we created the content and put it out there, stuff, that we want, to kind of like the old FUBU motto, for us, or for you, by us. FUBU is basically what we're going with. And one thing we decided, besides having articles and, besides having a Twitter presence and all that, we need a podcast. So they took one look at my face and said, you've got a face made for radio. And they said, all right, you'll do the podcast. And as a musician, I decided, well, who am I going to interview? I'll try to interview some bands, and started placing ads on Craigslist in various markets around the world, and got some hits on that. And for about a year, I was a stay-at-home dad, which was awesome. I would love to go back to that. That's like my dream job, stay-at-home dad. But I did it for a year, and during that period, I had all sorts of time on my hands to contact management companies, to run down artists, to get rejection after rejection. And then every once in a while you get a yes. All right, they've got, 15 minutes to talk to you while they're, in the van going from this city to that city. So to circle back to your question, sometimes it takes a long time to nail down an interview, and sometimes not so much. But after the fact, you got to edit it, you got to post it, you got to publish it, you got to promote it. So yeah, I envy anyone that's doing it for the love of it. And I've checked out several episodes of your show, man, and you're doing a great job with it. So kudos to you.
Yeah, thanks. I know. Oh man, it would be so awesome to just walk into a room, sit down, do it all the way through, but we're not at that point, obviously, but I definitely enjoy doing it. It is a lot of work. And one of the things, the news part in the beginning, that was something that I just thought, yeah, that would be fun. I didn't think it would be as difficult and as time consuming as it's become, but it's kind of an essential thing, I feel, with the podcast. So I'm going to keep doing it until I get lazy, hopefully not. But so you were a musician before the podcast. You kind of touched on that. So what's really like the catalyst that drove you to like podcasting or radio and the website? I mean, you're friends, and then you just kind of transitions and you still make music, or how does that?
Yeah, for sure. I've got a home studio set up, and nice. I've not found anything really worth my time to invest into being a live band in a couple of years. Really, the last live band I was playing in was doing some armed forces entertainment tours where we were playing overseas for the troops, which was kind of cool. We got to go travel, across the world playing on the Pentagon's dime at some at some wild locales across the world that I'd never have gotten to travel to otherwise. But the downside was they want you to play 80% cover songs, so you're playing a bunch of bullshit tunes, but it's fun. But I was getting to live out my dream of being a touring musician, so that was pretty awesome. But I still have my home studio set up, so I still love to write and record. And that first track you played, Satellite Saints, that was actually a song that I collaborated with a dude that I met online through a Craigslist ad, a dude named J-Dog. He goes by out of the Orlando, Florida area, and he sent me over that track. He did all the music to it. It was already pre-recorded, and I just sort of came up with those lyrics for it. It sounded to me like an alien abduction kind of song, and that's what I laid down the vocals for. And so, I mean, at this point in time, collaborating with people online is, I think, the way of the future. And it'd be great to have some apps out there where people from four corners of the world could just plug in, just jam live at the same time with no lag.
Right. Yeah, no kidding. Oh man, there's some thing where a bunch of people sent in their vocals. They're all professional singers, and they all sent in a vocal part, and then they put it together into like a massive song. And there's like, I think, thousands of people singing. It was pretty impressive. But yeah, I think you're so right that the internet, it's the way of the future. It's a technological revolution that's happening, and we're gonna definitely touch on that in the political mosh pit. So before we go out, so again, like the website and everything, First and Monday, it's kind of like a one-stop shop. Just I saw it had sports, music, and then the podcast. That's kind of just one wing of this thing you guys built. And how long ago again did you build it, or you start it all?
My memory's kind of hazy, Michael, but I think we got together and started just spitballing the idea in about 2012 or so, and maybe we launched it officially at the end of 2013. So so we're coming up on about the 4-year anniversary. As I'm talking to you, I'm actually looking at the front page, and so here's a sampling of what we talk about. We've got an article about the Dunkirk evacuation. We talk a lot of history articles. We've got a NASCAR Coca-Cola 600 article, sports, Major League Baseball, All-Star Game, beer can burgers. We talk a lot of food, Memorial Day article, Hank Williams Jr.'s birthday article. So, like you said, sports, music, food, history, just manly stuff,
Right, and just a bunch of stuff. So, sorry, before we get to the political mosh pit, let's hear one more song by you, Bruce. Here's "Flicker and Fade" by Bruce Harris.
And there's something to be said. There's something to be said for turning around and moving on again. And memories flicker and fade. The hurt have lost all the time. Images frozen forever there. Precious like silver and jade. burning evil day, shining bright in the window so that you could find your way. And I would wait here forever in the thought that you would be okay. But I don't think that you'll be coming home today. Yeah, home today. Oh, flicker and fade.
All right, and that was Flicker and Fade by Bruce Harris. And Bruce, that didn't really sound like your vocals too much on the other songs. What's up with that?
No, good ear. I'm glad you're paying attention. No, that's actually a band of mine. I wrote that song, produced it, but that was a full band arrangement. I was playing bass and acoustic guitar on there. I've got to give props to the singer Jason Cordell for nailing those vocals, the drummer Todd Sharon, and the awesome flamenco guitar work by Mark Essick, who's doing some amazing blues band. He's got a blues band trio up in the Chicagoland area. So if you're listening from Chicago, go check out the Mark Essick Blues Explosion. I think that's what he's calling it.
So did you meet those musicians online as well?
No, that was sort of a boring thing where I actually knew them. They were actually here.
Right.
There was no illusion.
The old
actually,
analog days.
Yeah, I could actually reach out and touch them and say, "Come on, dude,
Play on
let's
stage.
get it going."
Right. So, yeah, that's kind of what we're going to talk about in the political mosh pit today, about like relationships and internet relationships and how they've evolved. So, like you're saying, your podcast and your website, pretty much everyone you work with on there, you've met them online. So you view the internet relationships and the evolving of it as a positive, a net positive, correct?
Yeah, I would have to say it's a net positive. Let's see. I met my wife online through Match.com. She actually lived about maybe 2 miles away from me, but we ran in different circles. I never would have met her without the website. But this was we just celebrated our let me check my tattoo. Our 8th anniversary.
Oh, congratulations! Nice.
Thank you. I wasn't playing to the crowd there, but my point is we met about 10 or 11 years ago, and that was before the advent of all these fucking apps.
Okay.
Yeah, so I sort of missed out on that. So
Yeah, me too. I know. I'm like, I don't know if it's good or bad, the fact that I didn't have a camera phone in high school. And today, I think it's a good thing, because I never really got into that same thing. But with the internet and social media dating, I believe it's 1 in 5, so like 20% of people who get married were married online or met online. It was the original place of origin meeting.
Right. So yeah, to answer your first question, yes, I as far as relationships go and, online and all that, I mean, I met my wife, for Christ's sake. So this company, FirstAndMonday, this website I've started, we started with like 20 dudes that all had a common interest. The thing that bonded us together, believe it or not, was not just football, but college football. That's like the nerddom of football. Anyone can be an NFL fan, but to be a fan of the college teams, where these players come from,
constantly
is
changing too. That's why constantly changing.
It's exactly. So that's a whole nother level of fandom.
Yeah.
So there's like a website, rivals.com, which is owned by Yahoo, and they cover high school recruiting. So believe it or not, some people actually pay attention to high school football players and which colleges they're going to sign with. So that's where all of us met, because we were on their message board. But the funny thing is, very little of the banter on the message board had to do with actual football. It had to do with real life stuff, and what do you have for lunch, and who are you dating? Let's see a picture of her. Let's rate her. That kind of stuff. And so we came together, about 20 of us. Threw in some money to start FirstAndMonday, and through attrition, we're down. We've added some people, we've lost some people, but now we're down to about a dozen owners that operate this website, and I've met most of them in real life. Although there's spread out all over the country. I've met most of them in real life, and those that I haven't met, I still consider friends because I interact with these people on a daily basis.
Definitely. Yeah. So, and it's been successful. And like you said, with your wife, you wouldn't even have met these people, your business partners or your wife, if you didn't have the internet. So, and I think I generally agree with you, for the internet and everything. But I mean, if I agreed with you, this wouldn't really be that interesting of a podcast. So, so I'll have to kind of take more of like the other perspective, you know? So, you know, some would say that, it's pulling people from being more isolated and less going out. So people are living more vicariously through other people, well, looking at other people's Instagrams or Snapchats instead of actually going out and hiking themselves. What would you say about that?
I would say that pen pals have existed forever, right? Since the mail began. People have been writing letters to people that they would probably never meet in real life. There's something romantic to that notion. And the other thing is that your traditional friends that you grow up with, they're sort of thrust upon you. It's because you went to the same school, or you had the same family members. You know, your cousins, your distant family became your friends, and you didn't get to sort of pick and choose. Whereas online, you know, you can watch your Facebook or your Twitter feed and see, you know, thousands of handles roll through, and you can say, hey, I sort of like that, or this person, you know, is like-minded with me, and you can sort of pick and choose who you want to be friends with. And from there, you know, of course, there's trolls, there's people being insincere, but the point is you have the time to pick and choose who you really want to invest your time with. And, you know, back before the internet, sure, you know, people were spending time with people they really didn't like, you know, so they were sort of daydreaming about, when I'm going to meet somebody that actually gets me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good point with the pen pals. That's such a good point, because that has been a thing for such a long time. And now with, you know, there's all sorts of apps that people meet and they DM each other and just kind of talk, and they don't never meet in real life. Or even video games. So you play video games and you communicate with people. You may never even see their face, but you know a lot about them. And you're like combat war vets, you know, online together, essentially. So I think that's a really good point. I didn't really think of it like that. But then, okay, let's keep going on.
Well, let me just interject about video games. I was playing Xbox Live the other night, you know, a first-person shooter, and I was shocked to learn that about half a dozen different 12-year-olds had fucked my mom. I mean, I had no idea she was into that.
That's so funny. You know, back in high school, my friend, he used to yell, I fucked your dad all the time. So apparently this caught on. It's a trend now. But, you know, we didn't have the power of the internet. We just had to yell it out the car window, you know. They saw our face in my car. But yeah, so I totally agree. Okay, so I'm going to keep on this kind of bringing up the duality point. So another thing with kind of people getting to know people they like and just isolating themselves and then blocking anyone else. I'm totally cool and understand blocking trolls, but, you know, kind of bringing over to the political context, you know, a little bit. But people don't want to have any dialogue, even if they don't really agree with the person. It's just, block out. And trolls, I understand, but just someone you don't agree with, and then you kind of end up in an echo chamber. Have you noticed that at all? I know you don't do it, of course.
Well, in the circles I run in, no, I've not noticed so much of, of channels where you're only seeing one side of it. I mean, for instance, on Facebook, an old drummer of mine who's out in California now, working on CGI. He's a libtard, as they say, but he's from Tennessee, so his dad's like a hardcore conservative. And I would have blocked his dad, 2 years ago, but he's like, he like tags his dad in these arguments, and they go back and forth, the whole time. Another big feature of our website is our message board, and we've got both sides of the aisle. We've got a bunch of people from the Southeast, of America, which are the conservatives, and then we've got the liberals, and they wind up in the same threads, rubbing elbows, talking about the same thing, liking the same thing. It's only really when it comes to the divisive subjects, whether it's race, politics, the class war. It's only at that point, that's when shit gets ugly. But when you're talking about, hey, who's got a better fast food sandwich, Chick-fil-A or Arby's, there's no hate there.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, I agree. And I think, like you said, anyone can love or watch the NFL. I have a really, really hardcore sports fan he's like my best friend, but he watches college football, and follows it religiously. It's so funny. But I pretty much have watched college football essentially to be able to talk to other people, because I consume, I do this podcast because I listen to music and I watch politics. That's kind of my thing, and I hang out with my family and do that. But really, it's all politics and music. And in social environments with other people, usually if you bring up politics, they're not gonna, or, it's awkward, or they're not going to be stoked. So I'll follow football. And then if I can get a feel, I love to always get them to talk politics, because it's so out of the norm for people. People they kind of get uncomfortable. But I think it's good for people in general to talk about politics, and for people who don't agree to be able to come together and talk about these things, because it's super important. So what do you think, for the internet? Because we have the internet, we could bring all these people together. What do you think is something that we could bring all sides together and advance, some political good somehow?
Are you familiar with Black Mirror? The TV series?
Yes, on Netflix. It's amazing. Yep. Amazing. Uh-huh.
All right. So they've done some episodes on social media and that sort of sharing thing. I think we're sort of in the waters of people oversharing their lives on the internet. Yeah. But at the same time, they're rolling back and hiding their true feelings on some things. You might be friends with somebody on Facebook who seems like a super cool person who's always sharing cat videos, but they might hate black people. They might be a hardcore racist, and they just don't want to put that. They don't want to share that part of them. Mm-hmm. So maybe if there was the Facebook of the future where everybody's wearing a chest cam, we're talking about. We're talking about the cops. The cops should have a chest cam on them, so we know that they're honest all the time. Well, maybe you got a chest cam, but for every 3 likes, that you put on Facebook, you have 1 blast of actual honesty that you don't know where it's coming from. There has to be an honesty filter, because otherwise it's just too easy to paint yourself as a good guy and always point fingers at the other side. When a lot of times, you're sleeping with the other side.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with that completely. But then again, privacy activists would probably freak out hearing that. But as far as a blast of honesty, that makes me think of the WikiLeaks releasing the DNC emails. And that was kind of just, that was things that they didn't want to release. They didn't even know. And then boom, it was out there, and they are blasting the messenger and not the message. And that's kind of, it's what's the word? It's intellectually dishonest, really, because they're just making up other stories. So I think it's really good that we have this platform, but the anonymity of it brings the trolls and brings all this stuff. So what could we do about it, or should we allow it? Because I know there's a lot of talk about like net neutrality. How do you feel about that?
Like my grandfather once told me, if you don't want to be caught being there, don't go there. So if you don't want somebody to accuse you of doing something, don't do it. And then you'll have a much better chance of not being seen in that light. With net neutrality, I mean, that's all about big business. And I really fear that there's nothing that you or I or the listeners can really do about it. I mean, sure, what are we going to do? We could take the streets and protest to it, but when it comes down to it, net neutrality is, pretty much about money, and the big players are going to charge more and slow down the small players. Am I right?
Oh yeah, definitely. But going back to like politically, what could we get people on the left and the right to agree on? I think that this would be a prime issue, because I think there's small business owners and small internet activists on both sides that totally agree that we shouldn't give Amazon.com faster internet speeds than, your website or any small business.
It's too late. By the time it gets to the forefront, by the time it's a news story, you've got to believe that the players behind the scenes have already paid off the politicians they're going to vote for their cause. Mm-hmm. All right. So these lobbyists, I don't know whether it's Amazon, I kind of like Amazon. I don't think they're going to slow down my Netflix, but who knows? Whoever these big players are that are going to slow down the small players, I'm pretty sure they've already put money into the pockets of the people they need to put money into.
Yeah.
So by the time it gets to us, the sheep, the republic, the voters, it's pretty much already a done deal. Definitely. In most cases.
Yeah.
The few victories we've had have been about marijuana. All right, great. You guys can get high and we won't arrest you anymore because the jails are full. That's a whole nother episode. The privatization of jails and what a $1 billion industry that is.
Oh God, yeah, that's horrible. The amount of money in the failed war on drugs, really, and then also gay marriage, I think, would be another accomplishment. Even though that was done in the Supreme Court, it was still, a major change in our political and cultural atmosphere. But as far as one victory was, I think we stopped SOPA. A few years back, they were trying to push this law, SOPA, and a lot of the websites went dark for a day, and that brought the light to it. Because of course, like you said, the news media, they're bought and controlled by the big corporations like Comcast and GM. And then, or GE, and then you have the senator, I know Senator Jeff Flake from Arizona, he was the one who pushed through the most recent net neutrality bill. And that's actually, he has gotten most of his money from the telecommunications industry. Is the one who would basically benefit from it. So, I mean, you're completely right. I think if enough people hear about it, we can't stop it. And this is the one issue that we can stop, but I think most issues we can't. So, but bringing it back to relationships and everything with people, what do you think is, other than meeting your wife, of course, but what is one of the really positives about the connection of online people from, let's say, here to UK or here to Florida, San Diego to Florida or wherever?
I think the online thing is that we're sort of thrust into it because most of us, at least people that I know, work in a situation where we're there, 40 plus hours a week in a cubicle with a computer and internet access. And rather than dealing with, bots or, some artificial intelligence, we can actually find other human beings on there, whether they're, like you say, across the country or across the world, and you can meet these people, you can interface with them, you can get to know what's going on in their day, you can try to make a small difference. My main takeaway from what makes somebody happy in life, you're not going to have these, for the most part, you're not going to have these huge victories. You're not going to have these terrible losses. Maybe a loved one will die, who knows, but pretty much it's just the small things. Yeah, you got your parking spot that you wanted. Yeah, you left a couple minutes late for work because you woke up late, but you still made it on time. Those small victories, and maybe being able to share those with people across the world can sort of amplify your small victories and make them a little louder. And that's really all we've got at the end of the day is small victories.
Yeah, definitely. In those connections and building communities. I think that's really what it comes back to. Building communities, while at the same time, my thing that I'm mainly preaching is not being closed-minded, being inclusive with your communities that you build.
Yeah, and our message board has done a pretty good job of that.
Yeah.
For the past 3 Christmases that we've been around, we've had a Dirty Santa thing where we've randomly drawn users' names and sent them out. Their addresses have only been provided to the person that got their name, and they've gotten a gift. So people, we've got we got one guy in Guatemala that uses the site. I don't know how the hell he can afford it, but no, I'm kidding. He's actually a millionaire in Guatemala. Mm-hmm. But he sends presents to some guy in Illinois. The guy in Illinois sends a present to some guy in Texas. We go back and forth. We've done this for the past 3 Christmas seasons, and everybody posts pictures of the gifts they've received in a thread. So I mean, yeah, exactly like you're saying, Michael. That's a community, and something that at the end of the day, when maybe somebody's on their deathbed, they might not have ever met that person. But, if it's true what they say, when you're dying and you start seeing that highlight reel of memories, flickering in front of your face, maybe one of those memories that they see flickering in front of their face is that gift they got from that dude in Guatemala that they never met.
Right. That's so much cooler than just getting an emoji sent to you or something, But that's really cool. That brings the connection and makes it like physical. And I think, bringing it back to music and on the Punk Rock Politics podcast with music, and why I have like the record is really the logo, is I think we as, you and us musicians and the audience of music, we've lacked that like physical touch of the album. And I think that's why the records, vinyl, are really making a comeback, because you get the vinyl, you get the download card, and then you get to keep the vinyl. It's like a baseball card. It's like, it's a physical thing you can hold on, like a collector's thing, and it makes that band real. So I think that's so cool that you had your listeners and all the people randomly send something, and then it makes it real. It makes that connection more authentic.
Yeah, for sure. And if we could, before we get out of here, speaking of getting your hands on something, police brutality has been, as far as politics go, has been something that's been weighing heavily on my mind for a while. And these stories have sort of died down for some reason, but I think it's still going out there. And one of the tracks I'd asked you to play is a song called Deadly Force. And it's really about the fact that I think officers, I respect them and I appreciate them protecting me. But I think a lot of times they have other options other than using deadly force.
Oh, of course. They totally do. And this is a polarizing. We were just talking about what could bring people together. I think this issue like totally is like right down the middle. You're either Black Lives Matter, all police are murderers, they're all horrible, or you're Blue Lives Matter and no police can do no wrong, and everyone's a thug. So it's really where, like you said, most cops are good people, and that job must be so difficult to do. And then the problem is there's those few that totally fuck it up and kill people, and then you have the unions and the higher echelons of politics that protect these people, and so then it gives fuel to the extreme left who totally have a point about the police brutality. So yeah, it's such a big issue, and I wish both sides could just come together and say, yeah, police brutality is wrong. It happens, but most cops are good. Now let's fix the issue. Is that complicated and that crazy? But I guess it's just when people have been fucked by someone who is an authority figure, I think it really messes with someone's morale. Because, okay, my mom, she's white, middle class, normal, and once a lot of these videos, like you said, started coming out, I mean, I showed her because I have a lot of friends who I would witness this firsthand, or they would tell me about this in high school. So I kind of knew this was going on, but I never saw videos until the advent of cell phones and everything. And but I would see it on the videos, and I would show my mom. She's like, "Oh my God, like." What is he doing to him? You know, I'm like, when you get pulled over, Mom, is the first thing you get asked, like, do you have a weapon in the car? Do you have drugs in the car? No. Or do you have a warrant for your arrest? No, they ask license and registration. But a lot of minorities, they'll be like, do you have a warrant? Get out of the car. Like, first thing. And it's just blatantly obvious now.
God damn it. I can't.
Yeah. And I really wish this is something that needs to be fixed. And I think, unfortunately, it's so fucked up because the only way that it gets into the public eye and public spotlight and we start talking about it is if someone's shot and killed and that video goes out. So it's kind of like the only way we can make any progress is if some young kids are dying. That's insane to me.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, what a good thing to write, what a good issue to write songs. And that's what I really encourage here on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast with music, always, making music and having it about an issue. So before I let you go, Bruce, can you let everyone know, it's FirstAndMonday. What's the website and everything?
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's FirstAndMonday.com. It's the homepage. You can check us out on iTunes for our podcast. Just search First and Monday. And I'm always looking for musicians to collaborate with online. You can check out my SoundCloud. The Bruce Harris is my SoundCloud, as well as my screen name, which is Moose Shadows. Most of my material is on the SoundCloud /Moose Shadows page. So if you have a online collab you want to do, punk rock, metal, hip hop, whatever, hit me up and we'll do that shit, son.
Nice. Or definitely hit up Bruce. He's cool as fuck. They'll have Todd. They'll get your band on. They could talk to Todd. Do another podcast, because that's another thing. Like, there's with the internet bringing so much promotion. That was another reason why I really started. My track listings were the same goddamn bands over and over. Now I've already added probably like 10, 15 new bands to my Spotify playlist that I'm listening to. Just because I've been forcing myself to find all these awesome bands. So any bands or musicians that are listening, because that's pretty much most of the audience, definitely go check out First and Monday and hit up Bruce or Todd, and they'll have you guys on the podcast, I'm sure. And more promotion, the better, man, for everyone. So thanks again, Bruce, for coming on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast.
Right on, bro. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers, man. So here we go. This is Deadly Force by Bruce Harris.
wish you were here, I wish you were dead. I got black blood bleeding from my eyes, got damn wrong tongue, reading all your lines. I got a bad taste on my breath. It smells like cops and it smells like death. One more kid, dead too young for all those kids. This is a song. God damn it, please. God damn it, I can't breathe. Raise your hands if you ever stole something. Raise your hands if you ever hit someone. Raise your hands if you ever been speeding. Raise your hands if you ever been drinking. Raise your hands if you ever been high. Raise your hands if you don't want to die tonight. Raise your hands if you're free like me. And raise your hands if you're fucking PD. God damn it, please. God damn it, I can't breathe. Just because you got that badge and just because you got that gun, that don't mean you're always right. That don't mean you get to judge. Just because they might resist you, just because they look different than you. Deadly force is not your own option. Deadly force is not your own option. Right now I don't know how much more we can stand. And right now I don't know how much more we can take. But I know if we don't take this chance to stand together, it might be our last chance. God damn it, please. God damn it, I can't breathe. Just because you got that badge, and just because you got that gun, that don't mean you're always right. That don't mean you get to judge. Just because they might resist you, just because they look different than you, deadly force is not your only option. Deadly force is not your only option. Just because they might resist you, just because they look different than you, deadly force is not your only option. Deadly force is not your only option. Just because you got that badge, and just because you got that gun, that don't mean you're always right. That don't mean you get to judge.
All right, let's give it up for Bruce Harris for coming on the podcast. It was fun having another fellow podcast host on here talking. We could kind of share our stories, and I was able to be like, okay, cool. It's not like just this hard for me. I'm not crazy. It actually is kind of difficult to put out a podcast and put the content together and get it all going. So, definitely massive props to Bruce and for coming on and sharing his music and for putting his podcast together and creating that community like he was saying online. It's really cool how they do the Secret Santa thing. But all right, let's get to here's Open Mic's last call. Welcome. You've made it all the way to the end of the podcast. Congratulations. So today on Open Mic's last call, this is going to be fun. This is going to be this is going to be really fun. So talking about Theresa May's epic failure. And, it's not just Theresa May's failure. It's also the failure of the centrist Labour members. I'm really like an amateur, actually, when it comes to British politics over in the UK, and then also, the French election. I'm totally amateur on this. I'm really, really into American politics. I've been following American politics and everything with that for a long time. So now I'm kind of like watching these other elections and kind of watching the other political figures, because right now the world is more connected more now than ever. So it's really important because something happens in another country, it does affect the rest of the world a lot of the time. So, and you know what? I've come to admit it. I enjoy elections. I really, I enjoy it, and I enjoy the leading up to the election and watching the campaign, watching the debates, and then I also really enjoy watching the results come in and watching the different areas where they vote for and learning about a geography of another country, or in America's case, different states. States that I've never been to. I get to see, this is the more liberal part, or the cities here, it's more liberal. Here's the country, but it's cool. You get to learn a lot about a state by looking at the voting results. So what did we learn from this UK snap election? Well, first, Theresa May had the biggest just political blunder in recent modern history. Really, I mean, it's insane. She had the majority, but then she went back and called this special election, and I hope I'm right on all these facts. If I'm not, tweet me, tweet the podcast, or message on Facebook or YouTube, and please correct me. But I believe she called it 3 years early. Granted, Theresa May was never voted into office. She kind of got swept in when David Cameron resigned because of Brexit, because of another failed call. They said, oh yeah, people won't vote for Brexit, blah, blah, blah. But what happened with Brexit is the left and the right had to have voted for Brexit. The far left, the very, very green, very far left people who don't really, they're okay with globalism, but they don't like the unfair globalism that has been occurring. And then you have the people on the far right, and a lot of the right, who are just hate globalism altogether. They want nationalism and they want to be isolationists. But I think a lot of people on the left, which the media and a lot of people don't really look at, but a lot of people on the left don't like globalism, and they want it to be, because it's not fair, and you exploit these other countries, and it's not right for certain other countries' gains. So but no one really looks at that. So another loser actually of the UK election was really the third parties. It has a percentage of vote, like what they gained or lost since 2015. So basically, only Labour, they gained about 9.5%, and the Conservative, the Tories, gained about 5.5%. Then the Lib Dems, the Scottish National Party, the Green Party, and all lost a little bit, about anywhere from 0.5% to 2%. But UKIP lost 10% of the percentage of the vote, because I think they had one member in Parliament, and then that person went out. So, I mean, that right there, if people thought Brexit was a big swing, wouldn't they be gaining more votes? Because if it's, a nationalist vibe, also with why did Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour gain so many votes? So like I was saying, it's really Theresa May, huge mistake, but really the real losers in this are the centrist Labour members, which after reading up on this and looking back and watching videos and listening to just like average people on the street videos and interviews, I really kind of got the sense it's a lot like what's going on over here in America with the Democratic Party, because you have people like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Cory Booker, even kind of Elizabeth Warren. She pretends not to be, but she really is at the end of the day. They're all these corporate centrist Democrats, and if once you strip it all down, there's not much difference between a corporate centrist Democrat and a Jeb Bush or a George Bush. So we're getting these people, it's like, okay, yeah, one's for gay marriage, one isn't. One's for gun rights, one isn't. Who cares? But when it comes to war, bailing out the big banks, corporatism across the world, exploiting other nations with this free trade bullshit, both parties are exactly the same. And that is actually what I want to play here, is all these idiots. These are all senior Labour MPs. And I don't really have who they are. I'm sure if, a few people from the UK, they might recognize a few people's voices. But anyone in America, don't even worry about who they are. Just know that these are all a bunch of senior members of Parliament from the Labour Party. Just talking about Jeremy Corbyn. So let's see what the centrist Labour Party members were saying about the senior MPs were saying about Jeremy Corbyn. Here, let's take a listen.
I think if Jeremy leads us into a general election, we face a 1931 style wipeout for the Labour Party.
Well, Labour would be in no shape whatever to fight such an election.
Absolutely not. We would. There's a real risk we would get absolutely wiped out. And what we know, having seen Jeremy Corbyn in a position of leadership for some time, he cannot do the job.
Right.
And if he is a decent man, he should do the decent thing and go.
And I've seen over the last 12 months Jeremy Corbyn as the leader of our party. He's failed to win the trust and respect of the British people. He's failed to organise an effective team.
Jeremy at one point said, I think we are at the moment an effective opposition, and there was just an intake of breath in the room, because we clearly are not, and it just shows how out of touch he really is.
And the idea that Labour can go from the position that Jeremy Corbyn strikes to victory is absolutely ludicrous.
No,
it's completely preposterous.
I think Jeremy should now realise that he's lost the confidence entirely of the Parliamentary Labour Party, and most importantly his own senior front bench. He can't carry on.
Voters have to be able to believe that you can be the next Prime Minister, and it has become evident that Jeremy Corbyn can't do that.
We need strong and effective leadership of the Labour Party. I told Jeremy Corbyn last night that I no longer had confidence in his leadership.
Are you putting Jeremy first or second?
No, actually, that's the Tory preference. I'm a Labour leader, or was, so no.
Oh, and that at the very end, that was Tony Blair. And you know what? Over here in America, we Americans, I was very into politics during 2003, watching the Iraq War. I was totally against the Iraq War. And watching Tony Blair be best buddies with George Bush, I swore Tony Blair was a conservative. I'm not even joking. I always thought Tony Blair was a fucking Tory. It's just until now that I realize he's actually was a Labour. Labor. I didn't even know that. I did not even know that. As an American, I thought Tony Blair was a conservative. That's how pathetic the Labor Party has been from watching. I mean, and Jeremy Corbyn basically survived a coup from his own party, and they were all saying how he wasn't going to win, yet Labor had the most gains in the recent election and prevented the Tories, the Conservative Party, from getting a majority of the parliament. So now it's a hung parliament. But it looks like, the Unionist Party is, from what I was reading, the Democratic Unionist Party is going to create a coalition with the Tories, the Conservatives, and create some sort of minority government. But from what I was reading, the last time that happened was in the 70s, and it completely fell apart, which, knowing Theresa May's luck, that's probably going to happen. So, and the huge loss from the third parties, they lost a bunch of seats. There wasn't too many parties that gained very many seats. I mean, the Lib Dems gained a couple. Like I said, the Unionists gained a couple, but it wasn't a lot of the other parties lost. So I think what I was hearing is a strategic vote. And a lot of people were voting against Theresa May. And then a lot of youth, from what I was also reading, turned out to vote for Labor. So that's what would have happened here in America, ladies and gentlemen, if we would have put Bernie Sanders up against Donald Trump. You heard it first. Everyone would say, oh no, he's not going to win. He has no chance. He's a socialist. And then they're saying, oh, Hillary's going to win. It's already over. The election is already over. Hillary's going to win. Bullshit. And this is proof. When you put up a real socialist, a real lefty against hardcore right-wing austerity, at least what you get an actual choice. I personally am very pro-left, pro-socialist government, but I also think that there should be a libertarian mechanism for people who want to go and live off-grid, people who don't want to be strangled by the government. They should be allowed to do that, yet you need to have a strong socialist social net. So there's a balance there. However, the Tories, kind of like the Republicans over here in the States, are just pushing austerity, cut everything. And there's backlash, massive backlash against this. And that's where Jeremy Corbyn is. He's the backlash, and he is an actual real alternative. He's not a Tony Blair. He's not a fake, not a Hillary Clinton, a fake liberal who's really a Republican, with the, all their policies are really, conservative, but they pretend to be a moderate Democrat. Bullshit. And this is the proof right here. So what's going to happen is 2018, especially in 2019, there's going to be a massive backlash here in the States against Donald Trump. And if the Democratic Party puts up an actual, real, progressive liberal as the party in all the House elections and the Senate elections in 2018, puts up real Bernie-crats, real liberals, they'll win. And then in 2020, if they put up real liberals, real progressives, actually people who are actually to the left, not these centrist fake phonies, then the Democrats will win the Senate, they'll win the House, and they will win the presidency in 2020. And, it's not like the UK is the same exact as America, but there's this over feeling, this swing. And it's obvious what's happening because it's worldwide, and it's basically being pushed on because of the declining middle class, all the refugees, the immigration caused from this endless war that's being pushed by both parties. That's why you're having these extremes on the two rights, and we want a real choice. So centrist Democrats, get the hell out of the way. Centrist Labor Party, go become a Tory. Join the actual party. If you don't like Jeremy Corbyn, get the fuck out of Labor and go become a Tory, okay? And you know what? If you don't like Bernie Sanders and you're in the Democratic Party, well, see, that's the crazy thing. Bernie's not even a Democrat. He's what the Democrats need to be. He's what they need to have. And this is all just crazy. So we'll see if the Democratic Party learns their lesson. I don't think they will. I don't think the Democratic Party will learn their lesson. They're going to put up some centrist shit in 2018 and again 2020. And we're going to get more Trump and more Republicans. But at least in the UK, looks like the Labour Party might learn their lesson. Will they? We'll see. But I think in the long term, Corbyn, he knows what he's doing. So, well, I'm going to wrap this up because this went way, way over. But like I said, this was a really fun election to watch. I love how these elections in other countries are so short. In France and now in England, they're only a couple weeks, maybe a month long. That's awesome. We here in America, we have a lot to learn from these other countries, especially when it comes to the election and how elections are run and how campaigns are run. So that's about it, and thank you so much for listening to another episode of Punk Rock and Politics, and this is Open Mic's last call saying we will check you out next week. Peace out. Thanks for checking out Punk Rock and Politics. If you enjoyed the show and the information brought to you, please subscribe and share the podcast. It helps us here at Punk Rock and Politics, but more importantly, it helps the featured bands gain exposure. Also, if you know any bands or musicians who would like to join the political mosh pit and have their music featured on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, please email us at punkrockandpolitics@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. And rock on, political junkies.
I think all of our society is run by insane people for insane objectives.
Doing a better job of talking to each other. The left hand now knows what the right hand is doing.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.